Beautiful. JP, welcome this morning. And we're going to have a bit of a yak about what it takes to be great agents, or what some of the great agents are doing in regional Victoria to make it ahead. And what are you seeing out there at the moment? Give me some general ideas of what great agents are doing in regional Vic.
I think that, the foundational idea is that, Peter, we've both grown up in regional markets ourselves, right? What you realize that regional agents have always been in a position that they've delivered great quality service, because the foundational idea is if you don't serve someone well in a small community, it soon travels around town pretty quickly. So that what you've got to do is you've got to have like real clarity about how you got to serve your marketplace. And when you think about it, like a great agent probably breaks it down to a couple of things. How do I make sure that I really understand everything about my area? School zones, what drives pricing, what's actually happening in that marketplace, where do people go to hang out? The secondary thing about really getting good quality market knowledge. What size allotment do you need to have before you can split a block? What does it look like in terms of council planning? What's happening to density of our area as we move from rural into regional and then into cities? The next foundational idea is that once we've got that market knowledge, then really understanding the transactional knowledge of what we've got to do in those marketplaces. And how do we make sure that we remove the risk from a seller's perspective? And, is that auction or not, to be able to remove, some of those conditions, to be able to give our owners certainty in the offers that they're receiving. And then in addition to that, then thinking about really understanding the brand and what the brand's all about, like being really connected to its community. So area knowledge, market knowledge, transactional knowledge, and then brand knowledge. And then what a great regional agent does is they really think about, well, how do we actually go to generate leads in this marketplace? Very much relationship driven, very much great open for inspections, very much about working with buyers and sellers and knowing who the key people are and key families and the key influencers inside of your market. Then what do we actually do to win in that listing presentation? Who are we going against? How do we present a more compelling case? And then finally, what we actually got to do to sell in that market, given the conditions of the day. So are there lots of buyers or not as many buyers? Do we wait the passage of time? Do we work more quickly? Is this the right offer for our seller to be accepting? Or ultimately, do we just go on for another 4 or 6 weeks because we think there could be a better buyer that's coming? And I think that, when you're in a regional market, you have got to be in a position that you elevate above the competitors through making sure that you've got a stronger work ethic, a better attitude, but most importantly, clarity about specific strategies that you're putting in place to be timeless in your marketplace to provide great services to both buyers and sellers.
Yeah, so JP, you hone in a lot there on the community, right? So the market knowledge is there to help inform the community and then build the relationships within the community. And we've always said that, communities are important in no matter which area you work in, right? But in intense, dense regional markets where your populations are so small, they become amplified how important that is. So talk to me a little bit about the need for relationship-rich databases, right, and what that really means.
So if you got to think about it, ultimately, I think that some of the most successful businesses of all time have been people like Qantas with the Qantas Lounge, Mecca recently with their Beauty Loop. And what you're actually seeing is that there's a whole trend, particularly in the retail environment and with restaurants, to really lean into actually understanding who your top 100 customers are of all time. Now, if you go and you have a look inside of a marketplace, who are the builders that tend to build a couple of spec homes every year? Who are the young couples that tend to maybe flip a few houses every few years? Who are the old school families that have been around for a long period of time that have significant holdings of either residential or commercial real estate in your area? And what are you doing to be able to go to serve those key customers and to do it really well? And that might be that literally there's just like in your phone, there's a list of your top 100 customers of all time. Mm-hmm. You actually jump on the phone, you send them a quick text, a quick voice note, you go out and you have a quick tea, coffee or a beer, whatever's appropriate, but you'll learn how to go to build those good relationships with those people that have got a higher propensity to go to do more transactions. And even if you're starting out today, having one person on that list is incredibly powerful, because over the course of your career, if you can make it 2 and make it 3 and eventually get out to your top 100 customers and learn how to go to serve those top 100 customers really, really well, you're going to have a phenomenal real estate business. And I think that the challenge is that, in a regional environment, we get to enjoy the peace and quiet. But if you actually enjoy that peace and quiet too much, you can actually miss out on a bit of the momentum that you can actually engage when coming to a city environment, because there's a bit of busyness, there's a bit of life, there's a bit of energy that's going on. Yeah. And you have to create your own momentum and your own propulsion. And particularly in some of the darker winter months, how do you actually get that level of energy for the summer and the springs that actually come into your market? And learning that you get to adapt at different times of the year. So how are we making sure that we've got beautiful photography, great videography? How do we go to present properties on market using the right portals and the right marketing mechanisms to be able to bring an out-of-area buyer, or to be able to get that local area buyer to be able to go and see significant value? And what I think is a really interesting conversation, I think that from 2022 through until today, It's been like a 40% reduction in borrowing capacity. So right now, if you could borrow about $1.15 million, you're in a position that back in 2022, the banks were giving you close to $1.8 million.
Yeah.
And so what that really saw was this huge proliferation of a lot of people wanting to either go and buy a holiday home or a weekender, or maybe that place they might will retire to at some point. And so it literally saw this significant lift in values. And now what's actually happened is a lot of buyers have said, particularly if you're in some of our lifestyle type markets, hey, you know what, maybe I'm not going to go and buy that house just outside of Melbourne. Maybe I'm just going to go and rent that Airbnb. Maybe I'm just not going to do that. And so in some markets, you've seen a significant number of listings, but a much smaller pool of buyers. So learning how to do really good quality buyer work. Is it literally the upgraders that are going to benefit from the current set of taxation legislation that's sitting in play? Do we need to find the local who's in the 2-bedder that wants to go to the 3-bedder that wants to move to the 4? But what a lot of people have realized quite quickly is that the locals are quite hard on price. And that's because they've earned every single dollar of that income to be able to go and buy that particular property, as opposed to maybe having additional equity through very strong growth markets in cities. That's actually allowed the buyer who's buying that second home to maybe be a little bit more splashy with their cash, as opposed to what a local might be.
You've touched on two things there that I really want to expand on, right? So buyer work, I think, is underrated in every market, but especially in regional. But also, I often talk about owning the airwaves before market, right? Agents in regional markets have this unbelievable opportunity to actually be seen and be out there. And I'm not just talking about Instagram and social media here, right? We're talking about being the head of their communities, being part of their football clubs, being that referred to person that when they think about real estate, they think about you. I remember you and I used to speak about it back many years ago that I used to do Friday lunches. Every Friday I had at least 2 solicitors teed up to go and have lunch. Got sick of eating the same Caesar salad, right? But the whole point was to network with a group of key referrers that every time someone was going to speak about real estate, I wanted my name involved in that piece. So talk to me about owning that airwave outside of just social media, because I think everyone talks about social media and TikTok and everything at the moment, but being known as that real estate, connoisseur in your regional market, it's a real opportunity, isn't it?
I think this foundational idea is that literally, go to call it, who are your top 5 or your best 5 referrers? And it could be the local person who mows the lawns. It could be a hairdresser, if you're lucky enough to go. It might be the barista. It might be the publican. It could actually be somebody who's inside of the real estate industry. And what I want you to think about is that, who are the types of people that provide services to your community that get to meet lots and lots of people all the time, which is why the local restaurateur could be your best referrer. And this is that whole idea about really thinking that there were 5 or 10 or 15 key people in your marketplace that you would need to know, because those people know all the people that you want to know. How do you go to build a great relationship with that particular individual? And the lesson of that is a really key thing, because literally you go for a breakfast, a lunch, or a juice, you follow them on Instagram, you follow them on LinkedIn, but you know what, you pick up the phone and you have a great relationship with them and you go and see them and you start to build that relationship. And I always think about how do you build a relationship with someone in a very short period of time? So I meet you, Peter, I then send you a thank you SMS after, I might flick on an email a couple of days later about something that's interesting, I might give you a quick call another week later, see if we want to catch up again. Maybe I might then add myself to your Instagram, maybe I like something you do, I comment, I DM you, and before you know it, within literally 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, we're at the beginning of building a new relationship which actually has the chance to run a couple of decades. And that's really how you got to do it. It's not just a one-off interaction, it's multiple interactions over a period of time where you're adding value. Now, to your point about buyer work, I think the foundational idea here is that we see a lot of agents that launch a property on the major real estate websites, and then they find themselves in a position that all of a sudden they go, oh, geez, we're actually in trouble here because we've turned up at the first open home and there's no buyers that have actually been there. So what great agents do is that they're reinventing particularly the just listed campaign. And that whole idea is it's not just a post on social, it's not just a DL that's going to be in a letterbox. But the first foundational idea is that, number one, are there any other properties that we have sold in the last 12 months that we know that a similar buyer would have walked through? So we've just listed this particular property in Red Street. Is there anyone who's walked through Blue Street and Green Street that we could get to come and have a quick look at that? Hi, Peter, it's Josh. I know you came through and opened with us late last year. Did you still have an appetite to buy? We've got a great new property that's just come up in Clark Street. What would it take to get you to come and have a quick look at it? That benefit of getting a couple of private appointments on it. When we get a private appointment at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, turn that into an open home from between 1 and 1:15 p.m. So anyone who's following the property on the portals gets an instant notification to turn up to that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my first open home is a midweek open home, because any buyer who's coming through a midweek open for inspection has got a high level of desire to want to go and purchase the property. And even in a regional market, if in the first week we do a midweek, and we never do another one, but in the first week we do a midweek, by the time we get to our first Saturday open for inspection, we've already got buyers coming back for a second look. Then also too, let's go through every market appraisal and every past client and even every landlord on their principal place of residence that we know that owns a property in the price range before. So if we've just listed a 4-bedroom home, who are the people that we know that own a 3-bedroom home that were thinking about doing something? And can we get some of those market appraisals, past clients and landlords based on their principal place of residence down to have a quick look at that 4-bedder? Because if they like the 4-bedroom home, then they may very well go to sell their 3-bedroom home to go and purchase that 4. And then naturally off the back of that, how do we go back to all of the 4-bedroom people that we know that own a market appraisal or a past client or a landlord who has a principal place of residence of a similar type to let them know about that? And so that naturally, if they want to sell, we can get them ready. So the moment that we sell this existing one, we can transfer all the buyers from that existing campaign where it has now been sold to the new listing that's in a similar price point and be able to make sure that we're continuing to work with lots of buyers in and around the same price points all the time to be able to keep days on market short. And what we know is that long days on market is the enemy of a great sale price, and long days on market is the enemy of a high performance agent. So the skill set to be able to get a couple of those buyers down, more private buyer appointments leading into it, more of those like early midweek open for inspections in the first week of the campaign, really driving that about a momentum is a really important skill.
JP, I think that's something that, the frustrating thing for you and I after so many years in the industry is this has not changed.
Yes.
Right, this has been the same since day one, right, and prior to us even being involved. It's getting back to those core sets of skills. And the thing that I often talk to a lot of agents about is learn to love this, right?
Yes.
Because that's what we mean by owning the airwaves.
Yes.
Talk to more people, connect them to what they want to know, educate them on what's going on in the marketplace. And you can do that by the thing that we love the most as salespeople, which is just talking. We call it prospecting. It's not. It's communication and it's connecting people with information.
It's great relationship building. I think that, we're in an era where people say, I flicked a quick text or I sent a quick email. But if I don't actually have your name and number saved in my phone, and it comes up with a number as opposed to it's Peter Clark, that tells me about where there's a relationship at straight away.
Yeah, will they answer your call?
And this is that whole idea is that literally, hey, you come through and open for inspection. Lovely to meet you today. Look, have a bit of a wander through. Tell me how close it comes to suiting your requirements. As you leave the open home, hey, Pete, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a quick call Monday, see if I can help. And as you leave, I send you a quick text about the particular property with a link. The benefit of that, you forward that link on to your mum, you forward your link on to your best mate, Con. And then all of a sudden, guess what? Con's ring you. What do you think you should offer? Your mum rings you a couple of days later. Peter, hey, I've seen that property all over social media. Like literally, it's a sign you should buy it. Mum, it's not a sign, it's a technology. But that basic idea, hey, now I'll give you a quick call on Monday. I don't get you. I send a quick voice note. You then respond to that voice note. Now all of a sudden you're starting to build relationship in a very short period of time. And this is that whole idea, hey, if you did buy, why would you? What's the reason that's driving the decision? How urgent is that for you guys to do something? And I always just think that, knowing the reason why a buyer wants to buy is a great skill set. Hey, why this one? Why now? And I love those two little questions. Hey, I really like this one because the mother-in-law's in the street, which means we've got a built-in babysitter. Why now? Well, to be honest, we're having another baby. Oh, congratulations, Pete. When's it due? And that basic idea about learning to be interested in people and caring about people and communicating with people is the skill set of the future.
I agree. Vitamin C, vitamin connection, right?
Yes.
We need to get better at it, right?
Yeah.
In a more disconnected world, the agents that learn the skill of connection are going to be the ones that prosper, right? And that's why AI won't take jobs of agents because they won't connect the way we can. One thing we're seeing a fair bit at the moment, JP, is outside agents moving into regional markets, right? So for many, many years, regional markets have been quite protected and insular. All of a sudden, with the migration from metro has also come a new wave of agents, right? Now, all of a sudden, that reduces the loyalty or that community feel where they've relied upon, always dealing with a particular family, we deal with that agent. And so more than ever, we're seeing a need for agents to be able to show certainty over fee, right? And so fee battle. And I'm getting a lot of questions coming out of regional markets. How do I defend fee? Talk to me a little bit about how you see the value or how agents can set themselves up to sell certainty rather than having to compete on fee.
So, the interesting conversation is thinking about this. How many times do you go to a market appraisal or a listing presentation where you did not sell the vendor the home? You're about to steal someone else's past client. And that's where it actually begins, is past clients that are rapidly underserviced because we left the buyer at the sold sticker and never built relationship leading into them owning the property. And sometimes people might sell 6 months later, a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, or they refer you at the local pub or the local coffee shop to an agent that you should sell with. So this is where it's interesting, because if you're referred in or you've built relationship in, defensive fees are a lot better. But literally the problem is that ultimately there's a lot of people wanting to play defense rather than offense. Now, when you want to go to play offense, you've got to actually understand the reasons why someone actually wants to use you. And if they can't see the difference, they won't pay the difference. So what are the 3 reasons why someone should use you? Off the back of that, how do you go to present fee? Do you provide options? Is there, for example, maybe a basic? Is there a basic plus? Is there a most popular option? Is it written out? So there's so many different things that are coming into that part of momentum. And the reality of it is that like you're panicky. But if you're in a position you can understand the situation and why you're thinking of moving, and you can learn to be interested in people, and you can be there in the moment, not wanting to rush to the next appointment, it will make a big difference in your ability to be able to secure the listing while you're there. And you and I are both from the school where, hey, we're here for a reason. If the owner's ready to go, let's do it today. And we don't have to send a proposal. We can sign an agency agreement while we're there. But in order to do that, you've got to have great market knowledge. You've got to have great transactional knowledge. But most importantly, you've got to have incredible situational awareness.
And look, I think at the end of the day, if they go in with the right intention of building a long-term relationship, people see that, right? It's those that go in hoping to close and get out within the next 45 minutes, not actually getting to take the time to understand what that client's ultimate need or problem that they're trying to solve in that moment is. And when they do that, when they focus on the real problem, when they take that time, allow that extra 15 or 20 minutes to be in the moment, that's when great agents really come to their own, don't they?
And I think this is the whole conversation, is that like at the end of the day, you can be worried about what others do, or you can focus about what you do.
Yeah.
And the best people in business always focus about what they're doing to get 1% better, to be able to deliver a better quality client experience, to be able to make the message land, and that's the ultimate story of what you got to do for customers. And if there's long days on market in a market, show people that with that SQM graph and say, guys, 2 in every 3 houses in our market have been on for more than 90 days. Turns out that the agent that you choose, the marketing that you use, the sale method that's chosen, the way that you go to price a property, how your agent does buyer work will have a material impact on the sale price that you will receive.
Agreed, JP. Ultimately, you need to show confidence, you need to show ability, you need to show care, and you do those things in the right order, in the right circumstances, and you continue to win business.
The thing I think that's really different is that, the regional principles of the future are really making a decision of how do we de-risk our business? How do we actually grow sales teams? How do we actually bring new people into the industry and take them from zero to hero? And we kind of forget what we're selling, because this is one of the only careers left right now that you actually get paid on results rather than being paid on time. And it's that skill set to be able to teach people that. And, great business leaders are thinking about, how do I build a phenomenal property management business? And that's changing, because of tax laws. So do I go to buy out a competitor? Do I merge with a competitor? Am I in a position that I do something different in terms of like a takeovers campaign or a switch campaign to get people to make that decision and come and choose our property management business? But actually having proper partnership programs sitting inside of your business so that you've actually got longevity. So that if you do exit the business, that you're actually growing the future talent that can actually take over that business in time. And that requires proper decisions around capital allocation. So are we in a position that, do we pay a dividend? Or do we say 1/3 of the dividend goes into a rainy day account, 1/3 of the dividend is actually going to go into a capital expenditure account to allow us to buy new property managements, to be able to go and maybe fit out a new office or maybe expand geographical territory? And is 1/3 of the dividend what we actually dispense to our directors, for the profit that's actually happened throughout the course of their toil? And I think that literally strong principled leadership sets a business up for, regardless of the market conditions, that it can thrive. And I think that's a big problem. And you see businesses surge because the market surged. But when a market pulls back, if you haven't put that money away for the rainy day, or you don't have that capital set aside for the capital allocation, and the chance comes to be able to buy out a competitor or to merge with someone to get you to that different level where ultimately recurring revenue can be above recurring expenses, so you've got a recurring profit, that's a really important part. And I think, Pete, you've done a really good job with that, particularly with the regional offices inside of O'Brien, to spend some time with them about getting their business model right for the market that they're in and getting them ready for the seasons that are ahead so they can stand that test of time but build a long and enduring business.
Yeah, well, I think, JP, so many real estate agents end up in business because they think it's the next step, but actually don't take the time to understand what their business model is. And it's one of the things that we've done at O'Brien's, I think quite well over the last few years, is going, who are you as a business? What are you trying to achieve? Now let's put the steps in place to try and make that happen, right? And take some incremental changes to get there. So it's been great. JP, thank you so much. It's been a great little session this morning to having a chat about this, and looking forward to hearing some feedback from our market.
Hey, Pete, lovely to see you. And as always, you're doing an incredible job. So great to spend some time with you this morning.
Thanks, JP. Appreciate it, mate.
Beauty.